What's up, guys? How's everyone going? It's time for another live stream, and it's part of the four-part series that we've been doing about the absolute worst things that you can do if you're working on a gig economy app. Tonight, I am happy to bring my brother back on the live stream from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Matt, thanks for being here.
No problem.
Matt's going to help us talk about, again, what not to do if you're a host on the Airbnb platform. So thanks for joining, guys. Let me know in the live chat right now where you're watching from, or if you're watching this in rebroadcast, definitely let us know where you're watching from. So today, we're going to go over 5 things that Matt's encountered. Firstly, Matt, can you give us a little bit of a background of your history with Airbnb?
Yeah, so I did Airbnb for a little over 12 months, and there's 2 options. You can rent out your entire house or your entire space, or you can rent out rooms or a portion of your space. So I've done both, but the large majority of what I've done is renting out my entire home, which is about 3-bed, 1-bath near the city of Pittsburgh here. So I've had probably over like 200 guests and quite a bit of reservations in my house. So I've made a little over, I think, $12,000 doing Airbnb, and that's very much part-time and on the weekends. So that's kind of my background.
Yeah, very good. Again, appreciate you being here. Guys, Matt is, again, based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm coming to you live here from San Diego, California. Definitely a little bit of a time difference, but again, appreciate Matt being here. So hey, let's jump right into it. 5 things, the worst things that you can do if you're a host on the Airbnb platform. What's number 1?
Well, the thing that people absolutely won't ignore is making sure the space is not only clean, but organized. And it sounds pretty standard that you would tidy up, but it could be something that you didn't even do. So the biggest mistake that you might have might not even be your fault. For instance, if you have a guest and they make a lot of trash, and they have a few empty pizza boxes or bottles laying around, and you think that you clean up everything, but there happens to be a few trash bags or something on your property, or it sounds pretty silly, but these things happen. They happen to me, and a guest notices that, then it could affect your rating. I mean, people are really sensitive to things being, I want to say, like hotel standards. So it's funny because you put all this effort into making sure your home is clean and organized, but they always seem to notice the one thing that you forgot to do, or you didn't do. So I would definitely make a list. Make sure that the basics are done, that the sheets are cleaned, that things are organized, but make sure that you kind of make a walkthrough of the home before you are accepting reservations.
And I think that's a funny point about, I guess, almost taking your own home for granted or what have you, the way that you mentioned it. But you think about it, it's, you're not used to, I guess, some of the things maybe laying around. I don't know really how to say it, but you think everything's clean, but I think what you're saying is definitely do a once over, a double check, a triple check, because like you mentioned, that one thing that's laying around or that little thing that's really garbage. I mean, think about it. When people go to hotels, some guests really specifically look in the bathrooms, in the corners, in the sheets, right? I mean, we've even heard of the people bringing in the UV lights, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just little things like that. Doing the basics, making sure your space is clean, which would be my number 1 first tip.
It kind of goes along with first impression. It's like, that's your first impression. And if you're making a bad first impression, then almost there's your rating right there. I mean, if your guests deem the space dirty from the start, it's going to be on their mind the entire time. And you can imagine what they think if they have to really go in and clean it themselves, right? They're going to be like, this is ridiculous. I got to clean up this person's garbage. Absolutely. Boss, I see you in here. Thanks for being here, guys. So today we're talking about the worst things that you can do as an Airbnb host. What is number two?
Yeah, so this is more of a strategy tip if you're considering Airbnb. This is a tip based on my experience. Again, for anyone joining, I've done Airbnb for about 12 months. I made over $12,000. Much of that is part-time, meaning I rented out my space on the weekends. So there's a lot of money, extra money to be made. But a strategy would be to screen your guests. And it's funny because I was watching a YouTube video from another host giving tips, and they were saying you got to really wonder why someone from your city might be looking to rent an Airbnb. Okay? Because typically it's going to be people traveling. That makes more sense. And how it works is they're going to message you with their request. Most people give a little backstory. Most of the time, they're traveling for work, for a graduation, something with their kids. But you always have to wonder about those last-minute reservations that are in your city. From my experience, typically those aren't the most respectful guests. Typically, you're going to have the most issues, with those guests. And by issues, I mean just things not being, and don't get me wrong, I've never had a disaster. I mean, I've had some disrespectful, I've had some messes in my house, okay? But nothing like a nightmare situation, but just make sure you screen, okay? So I would recommend accepting people who are traveling from out of state. If you have a hunch, just go with it, trust me.
And that's coming from experience. Tip number two, screen your guests. I think that's a really good point, is if someone wants to use your house or your extra bedroom, whatever it is that you're listing on Airbnb, and they're doing it in the last couple hours, maybe they want it immediately. And guys, Matt mentioned there he's had some negative experiences. Not a lot. I think he'll agree 99% of guests are very good guests. But I'll leave a link to the live stream that we did where Matt talks more about his experiences. But yeah, you really have to wonder if someone wants your house, your property, and they're in the same city and they want it basically now, I mean, at least give it a second thought. Maybe, read that message carefully because you mentioned they're going to send you a message, right? Read it carefully, maybe ask some more questions. Would you say that's a good recommendation? Maybe ask some more questions if it seems really vague. What if they just put, hey, I need your place, and they don't put any, can you ask some more questions?
Yeah, so their request will essentially open up a message dialogue where they're going to send you a message, you can reply back. And just keep in mind, if you're considering doing Airbnb, it's just like Uber or a lot of other gig type of thing. You don't have to accept, okay? Don't feel obligated to accept. And there's a drop-down menu, I think it says, I don't feel comfortable with accepting. And that's perfectly valid. Just ask a few questions. Yeah, I mean, people have messaged me and said, hey, looking forward to the stay, and that's it. And it's been maybe last minute. So again, from my opinion, I haven't had any, I've never had any complaints from my neighbors about noise or partying. I've never had any issues, any big time issues. It's just that typically if a person is, from my experience, booking last minute like that, there might be more evidence that they're just booking because they want to have a party. I've come home and people have obviously smoked in my house when I specifically say you're not even allowed to do that on the premises. So that's very frustrating, right? I mean, you don't want your furniture smelling. And, one or two times it's not going to ruin your home, but, that's the risk that you take. Some of that stuff happens when you have people booking last minute, at least in my experience from doing it for about a year.
Yeah, that's a great point. And again, guys, it is very important if you want more in-depth experience from Matt specifically that you do watch our previous live streams. Check on the channel. We'll actually make a custom playlist for our Airbnb live streams. We're getting some great traction and answer We'll answer some of your further questions. I want to welcome Travel with Aaron in here. Says, hey, what's going on? We're talking about the very worst things that you can do as a host on Airbnb. Boss, again, thanks for being here, asks, what is a policy if they cause damage to your home and equipment? Again, I would point you back to that the prior live streams that we did. And again, look for a playlist coming up after this live stream specifically for Airbnb. So tip number 2 was to screen your passengers, or moreover, not screening would be one of the worst things. What's number 3? The number 3 worst thing that you can do as a Airbnb host?
Just a quick comment. Yeah, if you have an issue with an Airbnb guest, you can request a reimbursement from them. If it gets ignored, you can open a ticket in the resolution center. But we go into more detail, on those other videos. But that's a good question. I just wanted to touch on that. So another tip I would say is, as a host, not following the Airbnb rules. That's one of the worst things you can do. So if you decide to get a little bit lazy, and I was definitely guilty of doing this, if it could be as simple as one bed pillow. If you didn't change the sheet, someone's gonna notice. I have 3 bedrooms. I have 2 pillows per bed, and I would honestly just tidy up the home, and sometimes I had to, it was a busy day, and if you miss one thing, that could be all it takes. There's certain rules that you need to follow, certain minimums, and you don't want to slip, because it's tough to get your rating back up, right? I mean, whether you're an Airbnb host or an Uber driver or whatever it might be, you want positive feedback, and you want to have the reputation of a quality place, because you're going to probably get higher quality folks, meaning folks who are going to respect the property, right? And as long as you follow the basics, the rules of Airbnb, you could be deactivated too. I mean, I think if your rating falls beneath like a 4.5 or something like that, you can also get deactivated. So you can make some big time money on Airbnb. Like during the summers, people are traveling. Okay, if you're close to a city, or if you're close to a major destination or a resort, you can make like $25,000, $3,000, probably $4,000 in a month. Okay, if you have the demand. If you don't live by many attractions, you're going to struggle to make more, right, than you would if you lived by a city. I mean, that kind of adds up. It makes sense. But yeah, make sure that you stay active by following the rules of Airbnb, and you do everything that you're supposed to.
Well, I want to acknowledge the earnings expectations, because that sounds fantastic. And just so you know, guys, Matt does not rent his home, I would say, too frequently. Maybe mostly weekends. And again, we're coming into the summer now, maybe some weekdays. But in one of the live streams, I remember Matt mentioning this is really mainly, if not exclusively, weekends. So if there's the potential to make $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, now keep in mind these are not earning guarantees. Of course, this is just coming from Matt's own opinion. Your earnings will, of course, can and will vary, but I think there's some great potential there. That's why we talk about this here on the channel. This is another option for you if you're a property owner, if you have a condo, if you have a home, what have you. So what I want you to do is, if you are interested in becoming a host on Airbnb, or maybe you know someone that really is in and out, maybe they travel, maybe they're in outside sales, or maybe they're just somebody who travels a lot, and their home can become a income property. I want you to share this live stream with them, and actually share and click on the link down below in the description. We have Matt's affiliate link to sign up to become an Airbnb host if you would like to capitalize on some of that potential income. So tip number 3 was to not follow the rules. It's one of the worst things you can do as an Airbnb host. I think that's pretty understandable. Make sure that if you want to be on the platform, this is their platform, this is income for you, you want to make sure you follow the rules. Tip number 4, Matt, what is number 4, the worst thing that you can do as an Airbnb host?
Right, so this will save you a lot of time. So trust me on this. You don't want to fail at communicating with your guests, because, well, here's a quick tip. whenever you accept somebody's reservation, have a copy pasted detailed check-in message that you send to all your guests. You can even put in there the rules, some of the rules, because there's a separate section for house rules, okay? But for me, I reminded people you can't smoke, please throw your trash away when you leave, but send them that welcome message, if you will, and then they might have questions. I've had people who said, I can't find the key, or the lockbox code is not working. Now, typically, that's an easy fix. They might be looking in the wrong spot. Sometimes my lockbox was kind of finicky. I had to tell them, well, you have to kind of, you kind of have to hold the switch down and then the door will pop open, the key's in there. So just make sure your notifications are on, make sure you communicate with them. And also a really good tip is when they leave, say, hey, I hope you enjoyed your stay. Please consider rating me a 5 out of 5. Don't be afraid to ask, because a lot of people, if you followed the other tips in this video and the other Airbnb videos, if you're doing the right things, then they're going to say, yeah, why wouldn't I rate you a 5? It was a nice stay. And a lot of people, most people will say that. Most people say, yeah, it was a really nice home. Yeah, it was clean. It was a great location, great parking, quiet, close to everything. I mean, these are real comments I've had from people. So that's pretty cool too. There's a lot of positive to Airbnb. People said, oh, your home's really stylish or something like that. The furnishings were nice. So there's a lot of upside with Airbnb. In addition to the money, you're like honestly helping people out, sometimes for family reunions, for their kids' graduations, and that's pretty cool too.
That's a fantastic point. And guys, again, that tip was not communicating. And actually, I'm going to link above some of the worst things that you can do as a delivery driver. We just posted that video recently, and one of the tips was to, hey, communicate. It's very simple, but especially when you're basically remotely managing these properties, it's always great, right? Like Matt said, especially whenever they're concluding their stay, just a simple welcome message. And I think another point that you made there, Matt, was, you're helping people. And if you think about it, perhaps some of these guests, they go to Airbnb because they want really that home experience. They could go to the, whatever, the Holiday Inn or what have you, the hotels at Hilton, whatever. But, everyone's different. So maybe your guest wants that home experience. Again, follow the rules, have a clean home, presentable, and you're helping them by giving them that home experience. And of course, hey, you're generating revenue for yourself. So again, number 4 was not communicating. I mean, you don't want to be a ghost manager, guys. Have some communication in there, absolutely. So hey, that's number 4. What's number 5? The worst thing that you can do as an Airbnb host?
Yeah, so I kind of put this in here as something different. I would say the worst thing to do, honestly, is to not try it, to not try Airbnb. And the reason I say that is, if you're following the basics, it's very straightforward. Think of maybe how many times you have had food delivered or how many times you have used Uber. Most of the time, 99% of the time, you're going to have a pleasant experience. And that goes for if you're a driver or you're a passenger. And it's the same with Airbnb. It's kind of the concept of it, the concept may stop a lot of people. Like, well, it might be my property, or, I don't know if I feel comfortable. Most people are just passing through. Most people are traveling, right? And just, I would say take the tips seriously. Make sure you're screening your folks, make sure you have a clean place, make sure the check-in process is easy. And it's a simple way to make, honestly, a ton of money. More money than I've made doing anything else on the side, and much easier too. I mean, it's real estate, I've talked to people who are landlords, and I make more money doing Airbnb than they can charge a month. I mean, because think about it, in the summer, what other platform, at least that I know of, can you fluctuate the price? I mean, if there's summertime and people are traveling a lot, you can raise the price to like $300+ a night. If it's the winter and it's a little slow, you can lower it and just try to get more people in there. So I would definitely say give it a shot. You know, I don't know if it's a mistake per se to not try it, but you might be losing out is kind of what I'm saying. Yeah, I would definitely recommend someone to try it.
And guys, I don't think that's, I mean, if you balked at that price amount, you know, $300 a night, oh, I can't do that. Think about your marketplace. Now, if you're in a really micro market, if you're in a really small, you know, territory, and you know you don't have necessarily a lot going on around you per se, then yeah. Sorry, I might cut out there. Maybe you don't have the massive events, but you know, regardless, I think there's some earnings potential there. And in one of the live streams, Matt mentioned being there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, understanding the marketplace. He knows that Pittsburgh is a big sports town. So he capitalizes on the demand during the Steelers football season, summertime with a lot of other events going on, and he is able to get that price point of, let's say, $300 maximum. And remember this, guys, I want to give you one tip on my end here. Now, I've worked on multiple apps in the gig economy, and the number one thing, well, one of the number one things, one of the things that I say, rather, I should say that, one of the tips that I give you guys is to become a master in your market, okay? Understand when's the highest demand time for delivery? When's the highest demand time for rideshare? Just like this, when's the highest demand time for Airbnb? And you let the market decide. And I think, and Matt, I think he'll agree with me here, is it seems like there's a lot of flexibility with the pricing. Is if he charges $300 a night, then the market will respond accordingly. And remember this, is Matt can get that $300 a night, and honestly, probably more during some of these large events, because he's renting out his entire space. So while let's say $400 a night may seem higher, well, if a group comes in, again, he has 3 bedrooms, then they can split that cost. So again, number 5 was, hey, one of the worst things you can do is not at least try. If you're on the fence, I kind of agree with that. If you're on the fence, if you're thinking about this, if you're a property owner, a homeowner, you own a condo, and it is allowed, of course, especially if you own a condo, make sure it's allowed, but at least giving it a shot. And understanding that, yes, there's going to be some really uncertainty. I think that's one of the things that I think Matt was hinging on here too, is there's uncertainty. Is you're saying, hey, this is my biggest asset. This is my home. And I'm putting my home up for rent to strangers. Yes, there's gonna be some uncertainty. That's exactly why you should probably do it. To break through that uncertainty, give it a shot. Try a few guests, see how it goes. When you're hearing it first from Matt, a first-hand point of view, after having hundreds and hundreds, I think maybe 1,000+ guests in his home, is that like a lot of these experiences in the gig economy, they're vastly positive. And the negative ones that he has had, it's not even necessarily a disaster, right? It hasn't been a disaster. It's been some inconveniences, and there's protections for you on the Airbnb platform for those inconveniences. Let me go to the chat here. Hey guys, right now, if you haven't done so already, can you please do one thing for both of us? Can you please leave a like on this live stream? It shows us that you get value in these live streams, in the content here on the channel, on the brand new Airbnb playlist. Check for that on the channel, and it gets more people on the Your Driver Mike team. And of course, since we're here on YouTube, it boosts us in YouTube's almighty algorithm. If you haven't done so already, consider leaving a like. It takes just that much time. It takes about a second or two, guys. As much time as it takes me to do the thumbs up symbol. So let's look in the live chat. And Matt, I'm going to ask you maybe for some final words here. Boss says, what is the punishment for a bad rating? And Matt, I think we may have gone over that in a previous live stream, but can you give me maybe the 30-second gist of, you know, is there any punishment, or what is the punishment if you have a lower host rating?
Right. So I'm not sure what rating takes your listing and makes it deactive.
And that's similar to a lot of other apps. Remember this, guys, is a lot of these other apps, it's the same thing. I'm not to interrupt, but you know, you're not really sure what rating it takes. For Uber, it's always been 4.6, but it's never really been explicitly said what the threshold is, right, for a punishment. But I'm sorry, go ahead there.
Right, right. So it is interesting. It is very interesting because you think it's going to do something. Honestly, you think a lower rating is going to do anything, but it really didn't slow my demand down at all. Because right, I mean, it fluctuates depending on people's experience. Somebody just they might have had different expectations. Maybe like I mentioned, didn't keep it, as clean as a hotel room would be, and that knocked you down a little bit. But my demand honestly never slowed down. I mean, there are certain things where people are always going to travel. Summertime, uh, in Pittsburgh, I had so many people travel for Steeler games. It was insane. Like I couldn't believe how many people traveled for the Steelers. um, Graduations, right? Students are always going to graduate in July or June or, you know, that time of year. Students are always going to come back in August, no matter what. Um, and people are just looking for a place to stay, especially a larger place. Yeah, it's a lot of families that split the cost. But keep this in mind. There's no minimum. I mean, you can do it for one night and decide it's not for you, and that's fine. If you're saving up for a vacation or a down payment on a home, you could do it for 3 months and stop. So yeah, as far as punishment goes, I didn't see anything as far as the demand. I know there's a threshold for deactivation. They never gave me any warnings about my performance. They'll basically, what they'll give you is your rating versus the average rating, your response percentage next to the average response percentage. It's like how many messages did you get back to? And it's like 86%, whatever is the average expectation, things like that. And they'll highlight, well, you need to improve on, this or this. But they never sent me any kind of message, even when I dipped down a little bit to like 4.6 or 4.7, it didn't affect anything.
Yeah, and guys, I mean, similar to Matt's experience, I've had the same experience on multiple different industry apps. I remember on rideshare apps, on delivery apps, my rating for a certain, I mean, maybe you just get a string of bad ratings, and it could really be next to nothing that you did. You just may
Right.
have a string of really picky customers, whatever it is, and your rating dips a little bit. So you get those emails or those text messages. Hey, you need to improve your rating. Let me give you guys a secret. If you're working in the gig economy, for the most part, and take this for a grain of salt, I don't want to paint with too wide of a brush here, but mostly your rating doesn't matter. Now, you cannot have an awful rating. Like Matt and I are telling you here, you can't have an awful rating because you will get deactivated on most all of these apps, but you have some flexibility. So I don't want you to panic if you go down on some of these apps a little bit, because most likely you're going to spring back up. And
Mhm.
I know Matt's home there, of course, and he has a very nice home. I mean, arguably one of the nicest homes in his entire neighborhood there of where he's at in Pittsburgh. So he may just have a string of bad ratings. Maybe someone's picky, or maybe he forgot one thing, when prepping this space. Who knows? But as long as you value your space, you take care of your space. Again, you follow these rules. You clean. You follow the Airbnb rules. You communicate with the customer, like Matt's saying here. I think you will find success hosting on Airbnb if this is something you would like to try. And again, check the link down below in the description for Matt's affiliate link if you would like to make some money potentially on Airbnb. So Matt, again, I appreciate you being here, guys. If you're watching this in the rebroadcast or live, make sure to post any other questions down below in the comments and let us know what next chapter of our Airbnb training you would like to see. Let us know down in the comments what else, what other insight from an expert here hosting on Airbnb, what you would like to see. So Matt, any final words? I appreciate you being here as always.
Yeah, no, thanks guys for tuning in, whether you're listening now or on the rebroadcast. Um, you know, 12 months of doing Airbnb, you make great money. You honestly do. It's a flexible platform, which I love. And like Mike said, I mean, 99% of the time, it's been great. It's been honestly the easiest way I've ever made money, like honestly. So yeah, no, I appreciate sharing what I've learned.
Very good, guys. And with that, on your way out, if you haven't done so already, consider leaving a like on this live stream. And hey, we will see you guys in the next one.